Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. All the characters in the story who enter into intimate relationships are over 18 years old. It's all too much. It's all too much by Hard Day's Night. Making sense of everything. Mr. Emery will see you now, the secretary told me. He's in the second office on the left. I nodded to the young woman and headed down the corridor to the door she indicated. I knocked and opened the door. A rather plain-looking man in his 40s was sitting at a mahogany table. Mr. Jackson? I'm Mark Emery, the lawyer you recently hired. Please take a seat, and we will discuss your rather unusual situation. I pushed the indicated chair away from the table, sat down and waited for him to continue. I have studied the information that you provided to us. I need to review it and ask a few questions to make sure I have everything I need to run your case successfully. I nodded, and he continued. On March 10th of this year, you received $3.6 million from Ajax International. This amount was obtained as a result of negotiations between Ajax International and your lawyer, Belinda Beckwith. Ms. Beckwith works for Logan & Logan, the country's largest injury law firm. Is this all true? I can't say for sure that Logan & Logan is the biggest bunch of scammers in the country, but they make such a statement, I replied. I see, Emery replied. Of this amount, Logan & Logan received $1.2 million, which is their standard fee of 33%. Thus, you have received $2.4 million to alleviate the pain and suffering that you have experienced due to the irresponsible actions of Ajax International. Are you satisfied with the settlement that Ms. Beckwith negotiated as your representative at the time? Actually, I was angry because my wife, whom I had been married to for 6 years, cheated on me with a colleague. But yes, the money helped calm my ruffled feathers, I confessed. Maybe Ajax will learn to follow its own rules. Mr. Jackson, did you have a contract with Ajax International? Did you work for them during your wife's infidelity or while receiving compensation? No. I work at the Ford dealership on Main Street. I'm one of their best technicians. I'm fine, I quickly added in case the guy thinks I'm some kind of loser. You mean to say that you had neither a written nor an oral agreement with Ajax International, but you and your rather attractive lawyer insist that they should pay you more than $3.5 million for the fact that 2 of their employees one weekend while you were fishing on the Silver Lake? Have you had a carnal relationship? Amory asked bluntly. I'm not ready to accept that my wife really enjoyed herself with this goat, even though she walked around with a big smile for the next week. I reluctantly admitted. You're a lawyer. You know that Ajax had to make a deal with me because of non-compliance with the company's policy, which clearly stated that there should be no carnal relations between managers and subordinates. The end of the story. And the company's rules stated that the spouses of the deceived employees would receive large monetary compensation? Amory asked rather irritably. Of course not, I replied in exasperation. It would be pretty stupid if it were recorded in writing, wouldn't it? Everyone knows that this is an unwritten part of any employment contract. I understand, Emery replied, when I began to realize that he clearly didn't understand. According to my information, you told Ms. Beckwith that you are absolutely sure that you do not have to be part of the agreement between the 2 parties in order to have an interest in this agreement. In fact, you told her that as an interested and injured third party, you have the right to claim compensation from a company with which you did not have an agreement. Is that true? Yes, you know it's right. This is a key unwritten section in the labor policy of each company. I didn't need to have a copy of the policy, know exactly what was written in it, or be a participant and a party to the agreement. They had a policy, but they didn't enforce it properly. As an injured interested third party, I was entitled to compensation, I insisted. Every lawyer should learn this on the first day of law school. To be honest, this is never part of the curriculum at the Faculty of Law. It's more like what law students discuss between classes and at parties, Emery informed me. It has become common knowledge that large and small companies always pay affected third parties for things that never concern those third parties, Emery finally agreed. Do you think these huge multinational companies specifically hire lawyers who develop policies providing for their responsibility for unfaithful spouses working for them? Wouldn't that be incredibly stupid? Yes, it's the stupidest thing, I agreed. You'd think they'd figure out how not to pay for just such a situation. If they cannot find a lawyer who can write a policy excluding payment to third parties, they should simply not have a policy. This will save companies a lot of money. Bingo! My not too smart barrister proclaimed. You've just opened a real can of worms. Have you ever watched a movie called The Matrix? I think you're moving away, I suggested. This film presents a very interesting concept of the world order, but it has nothing to do with my situation. Aren't you wondering why the company should award you and thousands of other angry husbands millions and millions of dollars every year because of the unwritten section of labor policy? Because they have to, I exclaimed. That's the way it is. That's all we need to know. Don't try to confuse me with logic or facts. I know my rights. Your thoughtless insistence that third parties are actually part of the contract is why you have this problem today, Emery explained calmly. Miss Beckwith is a very attractive woman, isn't she? She dresses to maximize her attractiveness, doesn't she? Amory asked. I began to doubt the abilities of my new legal wolfhound. Yes, she's damn attractive, but that doesn't give her company any rights to my side of the deal. We were adults and we acted by mutual consent. Please treat me with humor, Emery insisted more than he asked. According to my information, when you met with her for the second time to discuss your case, her left side of her body accidentally fell out of her dress. You stared at her in amazement for 23 seconds before she pulled her back into her rather low top. Is that true? Are you asking me if it is true that you were given this information? Or is it true what actually happened? I retorted deftly. Touch. Emery replied, grinning broadly. Is this what really happened? I haven't timed it, but I can assume it's pretty accurate, I replied. We got a copy of the video, and that's exactly what happened, Emery said. I understand why you are speechless. It's a beautiful-looking one. Did you know that Logan & Logan has a rule according to which, if an employee's waist accidentally falls out of its restraints and is in plain sight, the employee has 30 seconds to cover it back? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. How many employees could have such a problem that it would be necessary to create a policy governing this rare case? I asked. That's right. You are beginning to understand, albeit with some delay. Strangely enough, this has become a fairly common problem for women in this firm. They are all very rich. They often have wardrobe malfunctions during meetings with clients, especially after the new policy comes into force. It seems damn strange to me. Do you think this is a coincidence or some kind of conspiracy? I wondered. Let me ask you something, Emery said. Did both melons fall out during your next visit? Did you reach for those beautiful balls before she could put them back in? Were they as amazing as they seem at first glance? Better than any video you've ever watched. I replied enthusiastically. She was not a blunder, and yet how? They were natural, full and bouncy as hell. I wanted to. I get it. Moreover, I have a video recording, Emery informed me. The problem is this. According to the new policy of Logan & Logan, customers should not grope their employees if she accidentally sticks out of the topic for less than 30 seconds. That's another strange piece of information, I agreed. I didn't know that, but why should that give them the right to sue me? I didn't know this rule, and of course, I never agreed to anything even remotely similar. I thought that since they earned such a lot of money in my business and I know that her balls did not accidentally fall out for the second time, then as a client I have the right to pet these puppies a little. Don't you understand? You gave written testimony and even filmed it, stating that you firmly believe that the company's policy definitely affects third parties. In fact, you received compensation in the amount of $3.6 million for this very belief. Now Logan & Logan insist that you are a third party who violated their rules, which is good for the goose and all that. They want to be compensated for your actions that violated their policies. And that's why they're suing me for $4 million? I never knew about the existence of this policy. I never agreed with her. They can't expect to win anything from me. Do you remember when I asked you about the movie, The Matrix? This situation is the reason, Emery explained. In our world, it seems that everything is not in order, to say the least. Inexplicable things are happening around us. I work at an analytical center that studies these strange phenomena, and we have developed an interesting theory on this subject. I would like to discuss it with you. Now I was very worried. It seemed to me that my lawyer was some kind of conspiracy theorist. I decided to stop him with sound logic. Are you crazy? I demanded an answer. I don't even know what you're talking about. That's what you're saying. Am I crazy? I think not. Just listen to my explanations and keep an open mind about them, Emery said with a strange laugh. No company has a policy of indecent fraternization between colleagues, which would even remotely suggest that they would pay third parties with whom they have no contractual relationship. They have well-paid and highly qualified lawyers who develop their own rules to prevent exactly this. Yes? Then why the hell did I get $3.6 million when my wife was making love to her manager? Answer this question, I replied with some anger. That's what I'm getting at, Amory practically giggled. There is no reasonable explanation except for what? Are we in a fucking matrix where the authors of the code set the rules and we blindly and stupidly follow them? I said with a malicious laugh. We're not even real? I was on a roll. Do you think that Miss Beckwith's waist is the work of a genius code writer who was able to create these gravity-defying balls with perfect plump balls so elegantly positioned on these glorious mounds? Emery looked like a cat who got the cream. He smiled at me knowingly and nodded his head. You're starting to understand. Let me ask you a few questions. Your answers will help clarify our theory. By any chance, did your wife's lover end up with crushed eggs? Have the police questioned you? If so, did you happen to have an alibi for the very night he got his nuts crushed while you were playing poker with your buddies? Have all your friends vouched for you? Were they all divorced already? Did they all catch their wives cheating in the past and, by a strange coincidence, play poker on those nights when their wives' lovers had their nuts crushed in a dark parking lot? Were all these eggs crushed in the unlit parking lot of the Rusty Spoon Bar between midnight and 2 in the morning? It probably does sound a little suspicious, if you think about it that way, I admitted. But the cops have never handled this case. None of us were accused of crushing someone's balls. And we were all, of course, completely innocent. Don't you think it's curious that just last year 47 men who were caught cheating with a married woman were crushed in the unlit parking lot of this bar in the early morning hours? Strangely, the bar was never sued. Lighting was not installed, and none of those who crushed the eggs were charged in connection with this castration. Strangely, men who use married women still frequent this establishment. There are a lot of dumb bastards out there, of course, I suggested. Are you trying to convey some idea to me with these coincidences? Did you and all your divorced friends own your houses before you married your wives? Have you retained all ownership rights after the divorce? Do you own a software company? Do you have a secret offshore account? Do you drive a Mustang? Or maybe rebuild an old GTO? Did you serve in the Special Forces? If so, do you keep in touch with your old comrades in arms? What's wrong with that? I asked. You just described me and most of my friends. We are all good people who have worked hard to get our way. All we ask of our wives is respect. Without receiving it, we demand justice. I tried to sound confident, but that damn guy got to me. I consider myself a pretty smart person, but I haven't noticed such coincidences before. The laws of physics were still in effect, but I began to think about the laws of the Earth and why so many similar situations, solutions, and problems were happening to me and my friends. Maybe we're all puppets of some nerds writing code, working from our parents' basements in what could actually be the real world? Let's skip this nonsense, I insisted. I want to know how the hell Logan and Logan can sue me for millions just for playing with Miss Beckwith's big curves. The ones she dumped in front of me without any hint that I wanted to see them. Why did they fall out of her top at all? What's happening? Despite everything I was taught in law school, it seems that third parties somehow automatically receive money if someone does not follow the company's policy without even knowing about this policy and never agreeing with it, Emery explained. Logan and Logan were simply following an established but unwritten rule, according to which if two parties agree to something, then the third party, who is indirectly involved in this policy, is somehow part of it. If a third party can be awarded money when the parties who agreed on the policy violate the rules, then it follows that a third party can be sued for violating the company's rules with someone inside the company who agreed with the policy. Everything is simple. You're totally fucked. Who the hell came up with this nonsense anyway? I demanded angrily. That's not how the world works. You were happy enough when you could keep money in offshore accounts, crush the balls of your wives' lovers, keep a house, own a software company, and squeeze Miss Beckwith's big forms, Emery noted. This is just a natural development of unwritten rules that we would like to see in reality. Logan and Logan obviously have some influence too. The situation you find yourself in will soon become as common as the crushed nuts of your wife's lovers, dark parking lots, incompetent police, ridiculous alibis, and lawsuits against the company because two of its employees collided with their bellies. Is there any way to stop this snowball? I asked Emery. Is there really no hope? I'm glad you asked. Even as we speak, some of our greatest minds are working to solve this problem in our system, Emery assured me. We want to divide each state into districts determined by character traits and lifestyle. We are going to run a campaign so that all men who not only agree that their wives have lovers live in Cuckland, but also encourage it along with the humiliation that it entails. This is a surprisingly large part of the male population. I predict that this will be a very popular vacation spot for single men, as well as for married men who like to fool around a bit on the side. This case for these male visitors will be safe, free, and quite welcome. I think it will be so. I agreed enthusiastically. As soon as I find out where it is, I will immediately go to Cookland. It seems like the perfect place for guys like me. The next, second division will be called Hot Country. It will be home to a unique, but surprisingly large part of the population. Residents of this section will take from people who like to exchange spouses, hot wives, foxes, married fools, deer, cuckolds, and bulls, alpha males, Emery said. Don't get me involved in this shit, I said flatly. I like the idea of groping some top-notch married beauty in Cookland. It sounds much simpler, more pleasant, and more profitable. The third district will be a place where guys like you and me will live until they marry some lucky fool. Lonesome Hill will take from lonely people, of course. They will move out when they get married and return when they are widowed or divorced. We're going to have Gaylandia. It's obvious, and frankly, no one will give a shit what's going on there as long as it stays within the designated area. I think it makes sense, I said shrewdly. And last but not least, the place is Justice. It will be the best place for married men to stay. Scammers who try to cheat real men will suffer a lot there. It will be very similar to how we live now, only the scales will always lean towards justice. And, by definition, justice is what real men always strive for. We work hard and provide for the lucky women we marry. We can discard harlots as bad habits. Damn right, I said. We married men should call it utopia. Finally, we will get the world we deserve. And then I was seized with sudden anxiety. Will it be real? I'm asking you. Will the code authors collaborate and create this perfect world? Really? It seems that the authors want this even more than you do. Be sure that the nuts of the wicked will continue to be crushed in dark parking lots by real men who really love justice.